Let's talk about designing your music practice session. Starting is one of the primary obstacles of us doing anything. This is usually related to us envisioning undertaking a massive, let's say, 4-hour quest, instead of focusing on just starting with 5 minutes and thus tricking our brain into simply doing something. This video addresses the 2-hour trap problem and a little bit of the student comfort zone. We often believe that a learning session isn't valid unless it's a long marathon. The blockade is that we have a number in mind, 2, 4, or 6, the number of hours we are thinking we need to practice in order for practice to be fruitful. In our playful and engaged practicing session, this belief is a structural bug that prevents us from even entering the space of any learning. Kenny Werner introduces the 5-minute technique when you commit to practicing for only 5 minutes and promise yourself to stop afterwards. Focusing on just starting with 5 minutes tricks our brain into doing something. This is that equivalent of reading just one page when you told yourself you need to read 50, or journaling for 1 minute instead of telling yourself that you need your full 3 pages of morning pages routine set in stone. This so-called all or nothing mindset. Okay, then there is another virus, our need to succeed, which is what often gets in the way and removes any creativity from the process. Following on the other advice from Kenny Werner, next time you feel a snarl in your technique or a surge of frustration, stop for 20 seconds of breathing and tell your inner critic that you're just going to come back to the process just in 20 seconds. In addition to what I just said, for me personally, playing has almost become a luxury in my day-to-day life these years, which I generally cherish. Now, cherishing part wasn't always the case when I was a student. So I want to offer, let's call it a routine entry that helps me to see practicing not as a mindless routine that I need to just get over with, even when I have to play something that I don't particularly enjoy. So on the lighter day, when I have a bit more of time, I usually start my session with something entirely new that I haven't played before. It could be either some art songs by Schumann, Schubert, or warm-up exercises from Hanon, Liszt, or Dohnányi. Doing this allows me to warm up my fingers and explore the musicality of a piece that I haven't touched before, whether it's an exercise or a full, complete piece of music. But this alone and essentially becomes my 10 to 15 minute buffer zone to reset my mind and prepare both my hands and body for uninterrupted creative and myelin building work. Now is the time for some real advice. Some folks out there will tell you about those 5 minutes in order to trick your brain, but you know better. Don't fall for that, that's just laziness. Let's face it, if you haven't woken up at 5 in the morning, if you haven't cleared your entire afternoon, don't even think about lifting up that piano lid. Mastery is like, I don't know, digging a well. If you aren't planning on spending 6 hours inside the hole, there is no sense even picking up that shovel. If you only have 20 minutes, just spend it looking at the piano and feeling guilty. That guilt is building character, which is pretty much just as good as building technique. As promised in the earlier episodes of this series, let's start adding gamification components into our process. So, Yu-Kai Chou, in his 10,000 Hours of Play, categorizes different kinds of endeavors into hierarchy. We have sagas for life eras, we have arcs for objective-based quest lines, we have major quests for multi-month commitments. We also have micro quests and then tasks for individual to-do list items. So I suggest that we think about learning a piece of music as a single small quest. Now, following the footsteps of UK Chou and readily available self-development/productivity literature, in order to make us embarking on that quest line effective, let's apply the SMART matrix, ensuring that our goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And that's what we are going to do with piano music. In order to do that, in this video, I suggest that we define our own milestones of progression within our quest. Now, growing up, the only milestone for me was having a piece memorized, and then eventually, several weeks or months later, having it ready for a public performance. But that's a bit too broad, it's not very trackable, and therefore not very useful. When I was putting together a tracking system for my students, I broke this quest of mastering a piece of music into specific mini quests, or those milestones I'm talking about. So in practice, this makes it easier to track where you are in the pipeline and to know what to do next. Now, whether it works in theory or not for you, you can tell me. I broke those progression milestones into 7 broad categories, and I will put them on the screen. The first one is sight reading. It's after you read through the whole piece with only a few minor bumps. The second milestone is when you're able to play it fluently under performance tempo. The third milestone is when you can play it fluently in performance tempo. The fourth milestone is when you have a baseline interpretation, when you know how you want things to sound at the performance and how things fit together organically to make for a cohesive story. The fifth milestone was the solid memorization, when you can play a piece at the lesson for the first time without train wrecks, or at least major train wrecks. The sixth milestone is when you finish 10 run-throughs through the piece. So each day you run through the piece from start to finish once. That way you train your brain, your mind, and your body to operate in a performance mode. And the seventh milestone is the public performance, which is the epitome of the memorization and interpretation overlearnedness. That was my idea, and it works for me. I am curious to see and know if you have something similar for yourself. But if you don't, I suggest you try it and then tell me how it works for you. I'm gonna end this here. Be curious, be playful.